Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you all for being here today. I know today is the last day of the conference and everyone is tired. Believe me, I'm tired as well. And I would like to also thank the organizer to invite me today and to give me the opportunity to share the data with you. So on behalf of my colleagues and the PESU study team, I would like to present to you the topic dolutegravir containing regimen managed optimization for youth failing art. We just heard from the previous presenter that it's important to switch after failure of first line. But I also say it's even more critical to switch to an optimized regimen. So I have no conflict of interest to declare. Well, HIV and AIDS remain a leading cause of death among adolescents globally. A study conducted in Zimbabwe in 2015 has reported a virologic failure rate as high as 14% amongst younger adolescents. And in addition to this one, the Zimbabwe population-based assay in 2016 has reported also that only 40% of adolescents living with HIV had achieved viral suppression. So treatment outcomes remain poor due to poor retention in care, high virologic failure rate, and drug-resistant mutation. We see that this population, this hard-to-treat population, is a population that we really need to watch closely, especially with the introduction of new drugs such as dolutegravir. So improve treatment regimen and enhance retention in care is needed. So with the increasing resistance to non-nucleoside reverse transcriptase inhibitor and the need for simplified, affordable regimen, in 2017, the WHO guideline recommended the use of integrated strand transfer inhibitor in adolescents and young adults living with HIV infection. And as of May 2019, Zimbabwe has introduced as well dolutegravir in first, second, and third line. So it means that this dolutegravir will be given in addition with two drugs, two NRTI drugs, tenofovir and lamivudine. So in order to address all these problems encountered in adolescents living with HIV, we conducted an evaluation of a peer support intervention among HIV-infected adolescents and young adults failing first line and second line ART. So the peer support intervention to enhance virologic outcome among adolescents and young adults was a randomized cohort study that was established among adolescents and adults aged 10 to 24 years who had a viral load greater than 400 copies per ml on two occasions, 1 month apart over the last 12 months. So the participants were randomized in two groups. We had the intervention group and the standard of care group. So the primary objective of this study was to determine the virology suppression rate in the peer support intervention group and to compare with the standard of care group after 48 weeks of intervention. And the secondary objective of this intervention was to determine the frequency and pattern of drug-resistant mutation among these adolescent and young adult failing art, and to predict the activity of subsequent regimen using the genotype susceptibility score. So for the purpose of this presentation, I'm going to focus on the secondary objective because this is where my work lies. And the primary, just to let you know that there's a manuscript in preparation for the clinical outcome of the primary objective. That was very interesting. So in order to achieve our second objective, that was to determine the frequency and pattern of drug resistance and to predict the activity of subsequent regimen, we then extract RNA from baseline plasma sample in an individual only that had viral load greater than 1,000 copies per ml, and RNA was successfully extracted from 160 participants. At baseline, 185 participants had a viral load greater than 1,000 copies, and we successfully genotyped 160. So genotyping was conducted by Sanger sequencing, and the drug-resistant mutation were determined using the Stanford HIV database. So using the drug-resistant mutation, we determined then the total genotype susceptibility score that is based on the drug-resistant mutation result to score the activity of each drug in a given regimen. And then our interpretation was our cutoff was a TGS greater than 2 that imply an optimal regimen, And TDS less than 2, less or equal than 2 implies suboptimal regimen, because according to the HIV Stanford database, an NRHI is scored as 1 if it's active, 0 if it's not active, and 0.5 is this intermediate. So the protease inhibitor was scored as 1.5, and dolutegravir also, since we are doing the optimization of dolutegravir was scored as 1.5, like a PI. So this is the demographic and clinical characteristic of the 160 participants that were successfully sequenced. So the median age was 18, and 52% of the population were male. And we have the median CD4 was 196. We can see that the children were immunosuppressed at enrollment, and also the viral load 4.5 greater than 10,000 copies per mil. Just to note also that 70% of the population was on first-line ARD regimen, and the majority was on tenofovir, lamivudine, and efavirenz, 77%. And we have 30% of those participants on second-line, and most of the participants on second-line was on atazanavir, and atazanavir 83%. So when we look now, after genotyping, we look at the frequency of drug resistance mutation in this cohort. We can see that the drug-resistant mutation in this cohort is very high. Any drug-resistant mutation was detected in 86%, and then we have the NRHI mutation for patient on first line detected in 85%, and the PI were detected only in 10%. So this is just suggestive of less exposure, like children on second line usually fail, not because of the resistant mutation, but because of adherence problem. And we see, I want you to look at the NRHI mutation. The NRHI mutation was detected also in 60%. That is high. Why am I saying that? I want you to focus on this because these are the drugs that will be given in combination with dolutegravir. And then so M184, for those who are not really familiar with resistance, M184V is the mutation that gives resistance to tenofovir, to lamivudine. And K65, that was detected in 25%, is the mutation that gives resistance to tenofovir. And the TAM is the mutation detected in 24%, is the mutation that gives resistance to zidovudine. So we can see that in this is the population of adolescent failing ARD with high level of drug-resistant mutation. And we need to optimize the subsequent regimen. So the second table is just frequency. When we compare the frequency of drug-resistant mutation in first and second line, we can see that also that the mutation are more prevalent in first line than second line, and all this mutation was statistically significant between first and second line. Just like what I said, we see that second line, first adolescent and children on first line usually fail because of drug-resistant mutation, rather than those on second line that fail because of adherence problem. We can see how the mutations are very significant in these two groups. So now, this is where I want you to be focused, because this is where I just hope the whole Zimbabwe and the policymaker were there so that to understand what is happening. So this is the genotypic susceptibility score. We can use the genotypic susceptibility score to infer adherence and to also optimize subsequent regimen. So these are the first line regimen. We had 112 participants on first line. Remember, this is a participant viremic with viral load greater than 1,000 copies that we just demonstrated that they have high level of drug-resistant mutation. So when we use the genotypic susceptibility score to infer adherence on their current regimen, we notice that for those in first line, we have 93% were on suboptimal regimen. This is just evident because we show that those on first line had high level of drug-resistant mutation. So that's why they were not adhering on their treatment. But when you look now on second line, we see 12.5% only were on suboptimal treatment, yet they didn't have any drug-resistant mutation. So meaning that this patient, this adolescent on second line really don't take their medication. So we can also use the genotypic susceptibility score to optimize the next regimen. So of the first line failing, the 112 failing in NRHI mutation, if you had to switch them to a next regimen as per the Zimbabwe national guidelines saying since they were in NRHI, they are switched to a PI. So we see that 189% of these young adolescents will be on an optimal regimen. And if we switch the second line as per the national guidelines saying that those on PI have to be switched or integrated, we see that all of them will be on optimal regimen. So we went on and looked at, if we're using the genotype susceptibility score, if this first line was switched to a TLD as per the WHO recommendation now, we see only 58% of these adolescents will be on an optimal treatment. This is very bad, and we have to ask ourselves why. And we just show that this is a population with high level of drug-resistant mutation, and they are on tenofovir and lamivudine. And TLD will be introduced in the country with a combination again of tenofovir and lamivudine. And if we switch this second line to a TLD regimen, we see that 92% will be on a suboptimal regimen. And then now, when we went on and looked at, okay, if this first line patient has switched as per the WHO guideline, now saying that we switch to a dolutegravir plus an optimized NRTI, meaning those who were on tenofovir first line will be switched on dolutegravir plus AZT, and those on AZT on first line will be switched to dolutegravir on TLD. You can see now the 96% instead of 58% will be now on an optimal regimen, and on second line, 100% will be on a suboptimal treatment. So, and this is where we are concerned, because we know usually the WHO guideline is not usually what we have in the field. And we know TLD is introduced in our country, and we know what is happening in the field. All these patients will be switched to a TLD with that information of the viral load and maybe not genotype resistant testing. We see that 58% will be on a suboptimal treatment. It's something that we really have to watch out. So this is just the summary and implication. First line failure have high level of NNRTI and NRTI resistance. TLD rollout might be cognition of the implication of K65 and M184 mutation. Rare PI resistance was detected in 10% and a low rate of NRTI resistance in second line. Suggestive, like we see, of inadequate adherence to PI-based regimen and may be related to tolerance and side effect. TLD now, as a second-line option, may not provide sufficient coverage, as we show in the table, of all adolescent and young adult failing first-line therapy based on TDS evaluation. However, may provide coverage of adolescent and young adult failing second-line therapy. NRTI substitution of TDF, this is an optimized NRTI, if we go as per the WHO guideline, may be required, and we need to be balanced for side effect and the absence of single tablet regimen for those who will be switched to AZT, because that will be it won't be a single tablet regimen anymore. Conclusion, a significantly highly proportion of adolescents failing an NRTI-based first-line regimen clinical significant drug-resistant mutation compared with those failing PI-based regimen. And this is just one of our limitations. The analysis of plasma viruses may not reflect the full breadth of resistant mutant, because genotyping was done in plasma, not in proviral. The introduction of TLD in our country with a high genetic barrier to resistance in low and middle income countries may optimize long-term ART treatment success. But however, this should be accompanied by frequent viral load monitoring to avoid dolutegravir monotherapy and further limiting options for this vulnerable and hard to treat population. I would like to finish my slide by thanking all the study participants, clinicians and staff, and the funding grants. Thank you for your attention.